Hey, YouTube. Hey, Brian.
Hey,
Hey, great to be here with you as always.
good to see you.
And those
Yeah.
of you watching live, awesome to have you here. Those of you watching replay, thanks for that. But yeah, for those in live audience, please throw your comments and chat and ideas in the live chat. We love to focus on them and bring them, make them part of the show. If that makes sense. All right, let's kick this thing off, huh, Brian?
Okay. Yeah.
Right on. Hello and welcome to Python Bytes, where we deliver Python news and headlines directly to your earbuds. This is episode 298, just too short of 300, coming in fast. Recorded August 23rd, 2022. I'm Michael Kennedy.
And I'm Brian Ocken. Wow, close to 300. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Very cool.
that's what is that, coming up on 6 years here pretty soon? That's insane.
Really? That's amazing.
Well, 52 times.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, so pretty awesome. And got some fun folks we see in the audience who are out here frequently. Will McGugan is here. Will is going to be a guest on the next episode. So if you want to hear from Will, be sure to come at least listen to the next episode if you don't come to the live one.
Yeah.
Also, it'll be fantastic. Also, before we get going on the topics, I just want to say thank you to Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub for sponsoring this and so many of the episodes this year. Super great to have their support.
Very cool.
It's uncommon, Brian, to have such great supporters, wouldn't you say?
It is uncommon. Nice segue. I like it. So I'd like to talk about uncommon uses of Python in commonly used libraries. Actually, this is just a pretty cool article. It's by Eugene Yan, and it's he goes through a handful of things. I'm just going to pull out one, but it goes through using superclasses and a whole bunch of things. The idea was to learn how to build more maintainable and usable Python libraries. He's been reading some of the most widely used Python packages and learning some things along the way, which is this is an awesome way to learn, is to read other code.
I agree. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, so he goes through super and a handful of other things. When to use a mix-in. I don't know if I'd use that. Anyway, the thing I want to pull out is using relative imports all the time. And this is something I picked up not too long ago, but it really isn't talked about much. So the idea is that if you do an import, like a import something or from some library import, if you put a dot in front of at the beginning is the first dot, then it looks in your path, your current search, the directory of the file that it's in. So in the example, he has a base.py from scikit-learn, and it says from .utils .validation import something, and these are because it says .utils, it'll look for utils in the current directory and not somewhere else, because there's probably a utils like somewhere else also, looking for the search path. So this is neat. You can do multiple. You can do multiple dots also. I don't think I ever do that. I do the current directory and down, or the current project and down. So this is
dot will get you up one and then down a different path or something like that, right?
It will. So if you do dot something, and you don't do slashes, it's not a path. It's kind of like a path, but it's not. Like dot is the current directory, dot is like one up, and you can do 3, but wow. I think there's something wrong with your project if you're doing that. But maybe not. There's a couple links in there for further reading. There's Guido's decision on relative imports, which is part of the PEP 328 write-up. And actually this PEP 328 write-up is this little bit about Guido's decision, where he's talked about the leading dot or leading 2 dots. It's a really good, easy way to get a handle on how to use this. And I use this a lot now and try to put it in projects, projects at work and personal projects as well. So the dot thing is cool, and yeah, it isn't talked about much. So I like it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It only works in packages and not just a pile of module files, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so you have to have dunder init files within the directory. And that's, I guess, one of the things that I wish we had another name for, because in Python we talk about a package or a sub package. These are this could be just a directory with Python files in it that has dunder init, and that makes it a package in Python. But we
Some
also
definition,
we also talk about the package repository in PyPI. It's the Python package index. Those are not just directories with dunder inits; they're packaged up with a whole bunch of other metadata and stuff like that. So there's two things that we call packages, but yeah, they have to have dunder inits in them for this to work. So anyway,
yeah. Brandon out in the audience asked, so are we arguing for relative imports?
I
I
for the
don't know.
current directory, I am. I think that within a project, if you're like internal stuff, you're not. I mean, if it's part of the external API of the project, I will always go through the external API to get at something. But there's a whole bunch. There's a lot of times where you're just developing a bunch of Python modules together, and they're internally they're going to talk to other subcomponents, and that isn't necessarily part of the external API. And this is the best way to get at it. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Next up, let's go to the sky plane. So this one comes to us from, let me make sure I give the proper credit. This one comes to us from RMRF, the Sudur. Thank you for sending this in. Really appreciate it. The project is called Skyplane, 114 times faster cloud transfers. At first I was like, what does that mean exactly? Like, what's the baseline for this? I'll say so, probably what they're basing that on in a minute. This is interesting for two reasons. It's interesting because it's a tool that I think many Python developers would find useful, especially those folks doing a lot of work in the cloud. It is also useful or interesting because it is itself a Python project. Okay. So if you want to contribute to it or understand it or extend it or fork it into other things, that's totally possible. It's worked on by a pretty big group of folks. The idea is it gives you blazing fast bulk transfers, file transfers between any cloud. Any, it needs a little like star or an asterisk by it that says any means any of the big three cloud providers, okay? Whereas, this is like AWS, it's Azure, and it's Google GCP.
Okay.
So those three. However, what I'm not clear on is whether you can point it at the S3 compatible places. Like Linode and DigitalOcean also have cloud storage that are S3 like, but I'm pretty sure it won't work based on the way I'm about to tell you what's going to happen next. Okay. So if you go over, there's an architecture section. And if you look in there, they've got this Sky Retreat 2022, where Paris Jane introduces Skyplane and to the folks there. It's about a 15-minute video, but you really got to watch just 2 minutes of it to get the zen. So they lay down a scenario. This is, I believe in their world, they're doing data science. And so what they need is they need the data very near to them. And there's a woman in the Middle East using some AWS S3 endpoint there. And she has 80 gigs of data. And Paras is on the East Coast of the US and wants closer access to that data for their other work that they're doing. So there's a way with the AWS CLI to just copy from Bahrain or wherever it is over to Virginia. And they run that, and it says after running for a while, it says estimated time to completion 1 hour. Right? Is that good or bad? Like it's a lot of data, right? 80 gigs.
Yeah.
Halfway around the world. It's miraculous that this is possible, but is that good or not? So then they say, well, let's try it with Skyplane. They were getting like 20 megabit, I think. They run it with Skyplane. They're getting 30 gigabit transfers from the Middle East, and it took 30 seconds instead of an hour.
That's quite a bit faster.
That is
No
pretty
arguing that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so instead of going across the open internet, it was transferring basically over like dedicated fiber for just AWS data center connects or something like that, right? But what it does is it will spin up a virtual machine or many virtual machines in the different data centers. So I think what happened here, not 100% sure, but I think it fired up some VMs in Virginia, copied it from S3 in Bahrain directly through the internal data center transfer, and then pushed it into like nearly local S3 storage. And you can do the same thing from like AWS East Coast to Azure West Coast, right? You would fire up a VM, I think, in that scenario, in both of the data centers, and those VMs would talk directly over the high-speed data center network. Instead of like the S3 one, we'll copy it down to your machine, and then you push it back out of your machine to the new destination.
Yeah.
So it's basically manages data center to data center traffic.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It has, yeah. But it's like all the CLI. It's like one CLI command, and that's creating the various virtual machines, provisioning them, setting up the encryption, doing all the stuff, and then it shuts back down. And as far as security goes, what you do is you basically install the AWS CLI or the Azure CLI, and you just log into those local CLIs, and it uses those behind the scenes to do the setup of like create the VM and then SSH over to it, do the work or something like that. So it has a lot of integrity checking. So it does like checksums and verifies the files are there. The file sizes are the same and all that kind of stuff. It does end-to-end encryption, sort of. So the VM, as it gets it out of cloud storage, encrypts it and then sends it over the network. And then when it has to decrypt it to drop it back into the other place. But it also, on top of that, goes over TLS. However, some people might be storing encrypted data in the cloud because they don't trust that it couldn't, it's not going to get looked at. So even the stuff in S3 or wherever, Azure Blob Storage, could be encrypted, in which case you can turn all this off and it'll go a lot faster because it's already encrypted end to end. It'll set up like virtual private networks if it's within a data center. And there's a bunch of cool things that are kind of nice that you don't have to worry about. Anyway, this is the Sky Plane. So if you're transferring data between different clouds or even different data centers within a single cloud, it looks like it'll do a lot of nice work for you.
Now, it's believable that it's faster. I'm curious if it's cheaper also. Any comment?
Oh, that's a really good point, actually. If you go and say AWS to Azure or vice versa, I think it's the same price. But if you're going Azure to Azure, it probably is cheaper because I don't know if they really charge you for the S3 CLI if you say do a transfer.
Yeah.
If you're still like flowing through, but the within data center transfer is cheaper than outside out of the exactly.
Huh. Cool.
So maybe, I don't know. They didn't talk about it, but possibly.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway,
that's awesome.
That's what I got for you. Yeah, Skyplane.
Nice.
You know what else is awesome? Speaking of Azure.
Microsoft for startups. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They are, like I said, big supporters of the show, big fans of the show. And this episode, like many of them, is brought to you by Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub. If you have a startup and you intend to have some kind of cloud computing resources, or you've dreamed of going to something like a Y Combinator type of accelerator, this is a really great way to get some of the benefits of that. So with Microsoft for Startup Founders Hub, they give you a bunch of resources for running your startup in the cloud in Azure, but also many other cloud resources, like a bunch of GitHub credits for automation and actions, as well as access to places like OpenAI. But another thing I think is really important is having access to mentors and people who have been there and have the right connections, right? Like, I think honestly, that might be the hardest thing about doing a startup, because as developers, we can build it. Often we can build it, but then it's, well, how do you build the right thing? How do you, in terms of customer fit, how do you get access to the right networks so that
Yeah.
you can find people for investing, or get better maybe coaching for like sales and marketing? All those things are incredibly hard, especially if your expertise is in software. So through Microsoft for Startup Founders Hub, you get access to their entire mentorship network, access a pool of hundreds of mentors across a bunch of disciplines like idea validation, fundraising, management, coaching, sales and marketing, and a bunch of technical areas as well. So you'll be able to book a one-on-one meetings with these mentors, many of whom are founders themselves. So make your idea a reality today with the critical support you'll get from Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub. To join the program, there are very few restrictions. You don't have to be third-party validated. You don't have to necessarily have funding. You just visit pythonbytes.fm/foundershub2022. Links in your show notes. You apply for free. If you get accepted, you get all these benefits. And it seems like a great program.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What do you got for us here, Brian?
Well, it wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about Will McGugan a little bit. Yeah,
Absolutely. Hey, Will.
there's an article that is from the textualize.io blog, and it's 7 things I learned about building a modern TUI framework. And this is pretty interesting because I think that, Will, more than anybody else, has really thought about, like, okay, I want to have something be really responsive and really good to work with on the command line, which is, it's been there for a long time, we just haven't developed it much. So there's a whole bunch of cool learnings that he talks about, like terminals are fast, and they're faster than we realize, but there's a whole bunch of like things that are different about terminals than other places, like Flickr and tearing and stuff, and how to deal with that. So there's a whole bunch of learnings in here. The thing that like popped out as something that everybody can use, that I wanted to talk about, was a little blip that he talked about, that is dict views are amazing. So the thing he talks about here is that, so maybe, I don't know if everybody knows the term dict views, or views into a dictionary, but things like, if you have a dictionary and you ask for the keys, or you ask for items, that is a view. It's called a view into a dictionary. And they are super fast. And one of the things he points out is that they act like sets, also. And you can use use set operators, like, here's the little caret symbol, and I can't remember, I'll have to look it up. The caret symbol is a symmetric difference. Basically, what's just give me a set of the stuff that's different about the two different sets, or two dictionaries. And you can do this in code, but he's doing it using views, because those operators are happening with C code. Python has optimized those, so they work super fast. They're way faster than anything you could write in Python. So this just taking the items of two dictionaries and using set operations on them, and then you can go back to dictionaries if you want. You don't have to use that, but super cool. I didn't know that about dictionaries and views, so
Yeah.
super nice.
Obviously use dot items and dot keys all the time. Didn't know they had this name, and I didn't know you could do set operations on them. Quite cool.
Right. Yeah. Super neat. Then he covers a whole bunch of other stuff, like LRU caching, and how fast that is. One of the things that I thought was great, where he talks about Unicode in art, Unicode art in doc strings, of just like a picture says, a picture gives you 1,000 words or whatever, but he gives an example here for talking about splitting the screen into subregions. And yeah, there's no way to, describing it in text is good, but this little picture goes, you can just mentally go, oh yeah, I get it. If you give it a cut X and a cut Y, you end up with 4 regions, obviously. But it isn't obvious just looking at the API. But with a little picture, you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. So he's got a little, for people listening, he's got a picture showing just spatially what what it would look like using ASCII characters. So neat.
Yeah, I love it. I love when people put art like that in there. I'm looking for where it is. I guess I'm gonna have to look this up. But in CPython, there's actually this huge diagram in the malloc in the memory
Oh,
management
really?
section that shows you. It's like this. It shows you all the different data structures and concepts that are used to manage memory, like the pools, the blocks, and the arenas, and all that stuff in like a huge diagram in code comments. It's perfect.
Nice. And he gives a shout out to just one tool that's around. He must use it, called MonoDraw. It's a Mac tool, but so there are drawing tools that you can use to generate ASCII art. So or Unicode art,
Okay.
as it were.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nice.
Oh, maybe I'll be able to find it here. Let's see. I'd love to share it with everyone if I can find it. Oh, yes. Here we go. I'll put the link in here. You ready for this, Brian?
Yeah, you can show it.
Yeah. I had to find it. Hold on. Go. Look at this.
Oh yeah.
So here's the object allocator in Python, and it shows here's the object specific ones, int dict, and then there's like object specific, and then you can see these tiers. Then there's the Python object allocator, the raw memory, and it even goes down to like here's the OS and the physical memory. And then I think maybe further down we might be able to find like some of the stuff about arenas or whatever. But isn't that nuts?
Yeah, but also it's awesome because you can visually now you can read the text and it makes more sense instead
Yeah,
of
it
just
has a
having
short description and then a proper picture
Yeah.
of here's what's happening.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Cool. So yeah, that's a great example. And great recommendation. Sometimes a little bit of ASCII art like this, it really does help.
Goes a long ways. Yeah.
Yeah,
But there's
it sure does.
whole bunch of other great tips in Will's article. So encourage people to check it out.
Right on. Another thing that goes a long way is Python. There's an InfoWorld article that refers to Python as unstoppable. The title is Python popularity is still soaring, but the subtitle is Unstoppable Python, once again ranked #1 in the August updates for both the TOB and PYPL indexes. I don't know if that's Pipel or I don't know how to say this, but it's another secondary programming language index. And yeah, how cool is that?
Very cool. Also, a really nice rocket image.
I was gonna say this is it characterizes the other programming languages hot air balloons, and Python as a rocket taking off.
Yeah.
So some interesting things to take away from here. Let's see. That Python first took the top spot just last October, so that was actually big news, right?
Yeah.
Now that makes it the only language besides C and Java to ever hold the #1 position from the TOB index. And not only is it still #1, but it's actually gained a couple of percentage points on the current rankings year over year. So, for example, come down here, you can see it's actually up 3.56%. I think that's year over. Yeah, that's year over year.
Nice.
Which is pretty awesome. Also,
but
even
C
though
and Java have gained
down,
also, so I guess we're whittling down, taking away from.
I think it's taking from the lower languages down here, right? Like Objective-C or here we go. Would it surprise you that Perl and Fortran have lost? By the way, also it has the ratings. I don't know if that's quite what you would consider market share, but Python is at 15%. C is at 14%. Things that sometimes get compared, like R is less than 1%. Ruby is less than 1%. Those are pretty interesting comparisons.
Yeah,
so
they're also not really general purpose languages. I mean, R isn't, at least. So
yeah, that's for sure. Let's see. Yeah, the TOB commentary accompanying the index was Python seems to be unstoppable. It's hard to find a field of programming in which Python is not used extensively nowadays, except for safety critical embedded systems. So that's That's pretty cool. Let's see. Rust is now number 22, closing in on the top 20. And Carbon. Have you been tracking Carbon?
No.
This is, I believe it's Google who is behind Carbon. Yeah. It's a language that's intended to supplant C++, but be very C++ like. An experimental successor to C++ strives for the C++ performance and compatibility while avoiding its technical debt and extreme difficulty to improve.
Ouch.
Yeah. Not saying extreme difficulty to use, but like it's where it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a language on top of a language on top of 50 years. Anyway, but so Carbon has entered the index at position 192. They've got some work to do.
Yeah.
But it's still interesting.
Something to watch.
Yeah. And you look at the other programming index, again, no idea how to say it. PYPL, the popularity of programming language is what the acronym stands for. It's an index it's created by analyzing how often language tutorials are searched on Google. So that's one metric. Python is like massively ahead of second place Java, third place JavaScript, and then it drops quick down from there. Like, for example, Ruby, 1% people are interested in tutorials how to do it versus almost 30% for Python. Yeah. Anyway, that's just another factor that was part of this InfoWorld article. So, on one of the live streams not too long ago, somebody said, "Oh, I heard that there's not a whole lot of jobs or interest in Python. Maybe what else should I learn?" But you know what? I'm not so sure you're getting great advice if that's where you're thinking.
Okay.
I mean, popular is not everything, but it's an important part of like, can I have a job? Can I find developers doing this? Will there be a library for my thing X I want to talk to with it, and so on?
I love Python, obviously, but it's hard to answer those. Like, for a job, what languages should I learn? I don't want to answer that. Depends on what you're trying to get into. But just as a roundabout developer, I think it is important to learn more than one language. I don't think that I wouldn't want somebody to just stop at Python and say, "Oh, I'm good."
No. Yeah. Well, and you also, if you want to build mobile apps, you might want to look elsewhere. Well, except I might have something in an extra section for you on that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. But did I switch the order? Did I jump in front of you? I think I may have.
I don't think so.
You got one more thing to go.
No.
Right. Tell us about some magic.
Oh no, this is one of my extras. So
this is one of your extras. Okay, well that's it then. Yeah, okay. Let's jump into your extras. All right, on.
I didn't want to cover this
really quick comment just from, I think this is kind of amusing, from SE Steve in the audience. Extreme difficulty to use is just a side benefit of C++.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, think about all the jobs people get to keep without much effort over time. Like,
exactly. I mean, if there was a lot of competition for C++ developers, I don't know what I would do. I'm enjoying the lack of competition. Yeah.
Exactly.
I just ran across the magic of Matplotlib style sheets article, and I just wanted to bring it up for people that might want to try it out. So I've used Matplotlib style sheets before, and they're just great. So you could just say like, so let's say you've got a current plot, and by default it's just it's not bad. It is what it is. And then if you just drop in one line of code, use plot style use, and then you drop a style sheet name, there's a whole bunch of built-in ones you can use. It just looks nicer. It's got
I love it. It's so subtle, but it looks so much better.
Yeah. But I didn't know that it's pretty easy to write your own. I figured maybe style sheets were complicated. So the rest of this article just talks about really how to write your own style sheet. So if anybody's interested in customizing the style sheet for their group or something, might be a good thing to just have, be able to roll your own style sheet. So here you go.
Fantastic.
One of the things the 10-year-old in me enjoyed that if you want the lines to end in a square instead of a rounded line, you give it a solid cap style of butt. So it makes it chop off the end. So it's funny. Sorry.
That's funny.
All right.
Yeah, this is not one of my extras, but I might as well add it as a follow on here. Is XKCD plots have landed
Yeah.
in Matplotlib, right? Like this, I'm sure this is probably accomplished the same way, but look at that. Aren't these fantastic?
I use these at work because they're just especially I especially like it if I've just made up the data or my sample size is small. I don't want anybody to take it as like a research project. It's just I'm
Right.
showing something informally. So
Right. Sometimes there's a whole ton of value to present it not quite polished.
yeah.
There's an app I use called let's see, what is it? I want to make a new called Balsamic. It doesn't let me type it anymore. Oh well. It's called Balsamic, and it'll generate wireframes of like web browsers and buttons, or it'll do mobile apps or whatever, and it intentionally has this shape, like it looks very XKCD like okay, this is not the answer, this is not the final thing, it's just to give you an idea of like here's the layout and so on.
Yeah. And
Cool.
I think it's balsamic with a Q. If people are looking
Yes,
for
it's funky small. It's spelled funky.
Yeah.
I think what happened is my keyboard's battery died. So anyway, that's why I can't type anymore. I'm not on a laptop, so when the battery dies, that's it. But it's fine because I already got all the stuff I want to talk about anyway. We talked about I wouldn't try to learn Python to write mobile apps, and I still stand by that. But we discussed way back on episode, which one was it? On 295, a couple weeks ago, we talked about Flet. And Flet lets you write Flutter apps in Python. It is super neat.
Yeah.
Where if you just look at an example or whatever, pull up the tutorial, but like the code that you write, I mean, if you ever done Flutter, it feels very much like that. But what you write is Python, and it's glorious. Anyway, the extra that I want to talk about is I had Theodore Fitzner, who is the creator of Flet, on Talk Python last week. And if people want to hear what he had to say about it in our conversation, they should check that out.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. That's it for my extras. I believe it's you. You ready for a joke?
I am, but I want to like pause and just say what I think that's one of the cool things about how we've done Python Bytes and Talk Python and Test and Code of if we do these small segments within Python Bytes, but if we want to just also do like a deep dive, we've got the other podcasts to do a deep dive into something. It's good. So
absolutely. It's super nice and kind of on purpose, right? We kind of designed this one so we could just quick talk a bunch of fun stuff. And then the other one, if you really want to spend an hour on something, like that's what it's for.
Yeah.
So hopefully people listen to both, or all three, rather.
All three.
Right.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Now something funny.
Now,
no,
you know, I talked about the cloud stuff, and you specifically asked about price. So here's the joke. This one has two pictures. One, somebody who is new to AWS, and somebody who is experienced at AWS. The new person, it shows this like cartoon character walking. One steps on a rake. The rake whacks up and smashes him in the face. Says, new to AWS, accidental $50,252 monthly bill. The experienced one with the rake is like, you know, sometimes skateboarders will jump up and they'll like grind down like a stair railing. They'll do something amazing. But
maybe
it's a kickflip
they're showing, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, off the stairs, the kickflip off the stairs, and like that often goes good, but not always. So here they're doing like an amazing kickflip with the rake, but at the end they land at the bottom, smacks them in the face as accidental $50,252.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then down here, there's a funny comment from somebody how they forgot to turn off something, so but luckily their card expired, so they just let their EC2 account expire. And Amazon was talking about doing like healthcare stuff and whatnot. So this person here, Jess the unstill, she says, just wait, soon enough, if you don't pay your EC2 AWS bill, they won't even let you visit your doctor. Sometimes things are funny. Yeah,
interesting idea though, to attach your AWS account to a credit card with a low balance. So that's one way.
Interesting. Yes, exactly. It might be a benefit.
Yeah. So
it just might be a benefit, actually. Yeah, quite cool. Anyway, I thought this was kind of funny. But you also have heard of real stories of startups shutting down because they accidentally did get like a $60,000 bill. They're like, we can't pay this.
Well, also just or somebody just misconfigured it, and suddenly they're making like the transfers are like 3 times larger than they're supposed to be, or something like that. But
yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, every time I run this command, it spins up a cool VM to do the test in the cloud. Oh, I forgot to shut it down. Whoops. Now I have 100 VMs running.
Ooh, yeah.
So concrete advice, you can set up billing alerts at different tiers. Like once it crosses $100, send me a message. Once it crosses $200, send me a message. Those numbers will differ for people, but I would strongly recommend that you set that up at your cloud provider. Like, if it goes beyond a reasonable amount of what I normally would like to pay or expect to pay, let me know soon.
Yeah, not like tomorrow. Let me know right away.
Exactly. In fact, can you make my smoke alarm go off, because I really need to get up and get going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, fantastic to be here with you, Brian.
Good to be with you too. Talk to you next week.
Yep. See you later. Thanks everyone for listening. Oh, really quick, one piece of follow-up out here from Kim in the audience. If a huge AWS bill accidentally happens, I'd rather I can speak to the AWS directly before giving in despair. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I've heard of
I've
heard of success stories where people just talk and they work with them. On the other topic, on the drawing topic, Will recommends that where'd it go? Excelladraw has a similar look, so I'll have to check that out too.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one. That's cool. All right.
Talk to you
later. See you all later. Bye.